She threw a full glass of ice water in my face while her two friends were standing right there in my kitchen. And then she laughed. Not a nervous laugh. Not an embarrassed one. A sharp, performative laugh. Oops, my daughter-in-law Ashley said, pressing her manicured hand to her chest. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. My hand just slipped. Ah, sure it did. I was standing by the counter in my own home, holding a tray of lemonade I had made from scratch. Fresh lemons. Real sugar. The way my late husband used to like it. I had put on my light blue cardigan because the air conditioning runs cold in the afternoons. My hair was pinned neatly back. I may be 78, but I still carry myself with dignity. Or at least I used to. The water hit my face so hard it took my breath for a second. Ice cubes slid down the collar of my blouse and tucked themselves against my skin. My glasses slipped down my nose. My hands trembled, not because I'm weak, but because humiliation has weight. And that weight landed square on my chest. Her friends, Brittany and Kayla, stood there frozen for half a beat. And then Brittany let out a little, "Oh my God," followed by a whisper that wasn't low enough. "Girl, you're terrible." Ashley giggled again. She's fine. She doesn't even feel stuff like that anymore. Right, Grandma? Grandma. Not Mom. Not Mrs. Thompson. Just Grandma. Like I was furniture. Like I was a soft, aging prop in the background of her curated little American dream. I blinked the water out of my eyes. Slowly. Carefully. I did not wipe my face right away. I wanted them to see it. The water dripping from my chin. The silence stretching. "I do feel it," I said quietly. Ashley rolled her eyes. Actually rolled them, and grabbed paper towels. She dabbed at my shoulder like she was cleaning a spill on marble. "You're so sensitive lately," she muttered. Sensitive. That word. That soft, dismissive word people use when they don't want to admit they've crossed a line. Let me tell you something. You don't live 78 years in America, raising a son alone after your husband dies, working 2 jobs, paying off a mortgage, surviving inflation, recessions, funerals, and betrayal, and become sensitive. You become observant. And in that moment, standing there soaked in my own kitchen, I observed everything. The way Ashley positioned herself slightly in front of me, as if I were already fading. The way her friends looked at me with that mixture of pity and discomfort Americans reserve for the elderly. The polite smile that says, "You're still here?" The way my own son, Daniel, wasn't home. Of course he wasn't. Ashley only performs when she has an audience that won't correct her. "You know," Kayla said awkwardly, "we should probably head out." No, stay," Ashley replied quickly. "She's dramatic. She'll go change and take a nap or something." Take a nap. Ah, there it was. The narrative she'd been building. Grandma is old. Grandma is confused. Grandma is fragile. Grandma doesn't matter. I set the lemonade tray down carefully on the counter. My hands were steady now. Too steady. "I'll change," I said. "Enjoy your afternoon." And I walked out of the kitchen with as much grace as I could manage while water trickled down my back. But here's what Ashley didn't know. I didn't go upstairs to cry. I didn't lie down. I didn't pray for patience. I went to my bedroom closet. And I opened the small locked box on the top shelf. Because 3 weeks ago, I had already started preparing. You see, this wasn't the first time she tried to humiliate me. It was just the first time she did it in front of witnesses. The comments about my memory. The way she'd joke about putting me in a home. The way she'd move my things and then tell Daniel I misplaced them. She thought I didn't notice the pattern. But I did. And last month, after she told a neighbor I was declining fast, I had a quiet little security company install cameras. Not hidden in a creepy way. Just positioned carefully. In the kitchen. In the hallway. In the living room. For safety, I told Daniel. He agreed instantly. Ashley didn't argue. She thought it would make me look paranoid. What she didn't realize is that today, when that ice water hit my face and her friends gasped, 3 separate cameras captured everything. The angle of her wrist. The deliberate flick. The laugh. The words. She doesn't even feel stuff like that anymore. I changed into dry clothes. I sat down at my desk. And I rewound the footage. Over and over. And for the first time in months, I smiled. Because humiliation can break a woman. Or it can wake her up. And as I watched Ashley's laughter freeze frame on my screen, one thought settled deep in my bones. She just made the biggest mistake of her life. And tomorrow, my son is coming home early. And he has no idea what he's about to see. My son walked through that front door at exactly 5:42 p.m., loosened his tie like he always does and called out, "Mom? Ash. I'm home." And for the first time in months, I didn't answer right away. I was sitting in the living room with my laptop open on the coffee table, not scrolling, not confused, not lost in some old memory like Ashley likes to suggest. Waiting. You have to understand something about my son, Daniel. He is not a cruel man. He is not weak either. But he is busy. Corporate busy. Conference call busy. Email at midnight busy. The kind of American busy that makes you believe everything at home is fine because no one is screaming when you walk in. Ashley thrives in that silence. "Oh good, you're home," she called from the kitchen in that sugary voice she saves just for him. I could hear the shift in her tone from across the house. Soft. Polished. Wife of the year energy. I folded my hands in my lap. "Mom." Daniel stepped into the living room, finally seeing me. "You okay? You look serious." Serious. Not confused. Not tired. Not fragile. Serious. "I am serious," I said calmly. "Sit down. We need to talk." Ashley appeared in the doorway almost instantly, drying her hands on a dish towel like she had perfect timing rehearsed. "What's going on?" she asked lightly. "Is everything okay?" The performance had begun. Daniel looked between us, already uncomfortable. "What happened?" I turned the laptop toward him. "I'd like you to watch something." Ashley laughed, actually laughed. "Oh my God, is this about the camera thing again?" "Mom, we've been over this. You can't obsess over every little." "Sit," I said. Not loudly, but firmly. Daniel sat. Ashley hesitated. And in that tiny flicker of hesitation, I saw it. Fear. I pressed play. The screen filled with the kitchen from earlier that afternoon. Clear. Crisp. Time-stamped. The angle showed Ashley standing near the counter, her two friends beside her. Me, holding the lemonade tray. We watched in silence. The flick of her wrist. The full arc of water. The impact. Her voice. She doesn't even feel stuff like that anymore. The laughter. The friend's reaction. My quiet response. I do feel it. Daniel didn't blink. Ashley shifted beside him. "It was a joke," she said quickly. "It slipped." "It wasn't." I paused the video. "Would you like to see it again?" I asked. Daniel held up a hand without looking at her. "No." His jaw tightened in a way I hadn't seen since he was 16, and someone tried to shove him in a locker. Ashley swallowed. "It wasn't like that. They were kidding. You're taking it out of context." "Out of context?" I repeated gently. "Is there a context where humiliating your husband's mother in her own home is appropriate?" Silence. Ashley's cheeks turned pink. "You're twisting this. You've been sensitive lately and—" Daniel stood up so suddenly the coffee table rattled. "Sensitive," he said quietly. Not yelling. Worse. Quiet. He turned to her slowly. "You threw water in my mother's face. It slipped. In 3 camera angles?" That landed. Ashley looked at me then. And I saw it clearly, not guilt. Resentment. Because in her mind, I was supposed to stay small. Daniel ran his hand over his face. "Mom, has this happened before?" There it was. The door opening. I didn't rush. I didn't dramatize. "Yes," I said simply. Not with water, but with words. With little jokes. With stories about my decline. With moved belongings. With suggestions that I need supervision. Ashley's head snapped toward me. "I was trying to help you." "Help me how?" I asked. "By telling neighbors I'm losing my memory?" Daniel's eyes shifted sharply to her. "You said that." Ashley's voice wavered now. "I was venting. You know how stressful it is living with." "With what?" Daniel pressed. She stopped. Because saying it out loud would expose everything. With the burden. With the old woman. With the inconvenience. The room felt smaller, tighter. Daniel walked back to the couch and sat down slowly. "Mom," he said carefully, "has she disrespected you like this before?" I looked at my son, my little boy who used to run into my arms after school, and I chose my words with precision. "She believes I am powerless." Ashley gasped. "That is not fair." I ignored her. Ashley stared at him like he had just betrayed her publicly. "You're choosing her side?" "There are no sides," he said sharply. "There is right and wrong." And for the first time in a long time, my son saw clearly. Ashley's voice cracked. "It was a stupid joke. You're blowing this up because she recorded it." Daniel's face hardened. "No. I'm reacting because you did it." The mask was slipping now. Completely. She turned to me. "What do you want? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry." "No," I said calmly. "Not like that." She blinked. "What?" "Not because you were caught. Because you understand." Her lips trembled, not with sadness but anger. Daniel stepped closer to her. "Ashley, look at her." She didn't want to, but she did. And in that moment something shifted. Not victory. Not revenge. Recognition. She was no longer towering over a fragile old woman. She was standing in front of someone who had evidence, witnesses, and a son who was finally awake. She started, then stopped. The room held its breath. And that's when I realized something even bigger. The water wasn't the real humiliation. The real humiliation was about to begin. Because tomorrow, Daniel isn't just asking for an apology. He's demanding something else. And Ashley has no idea how far he's willing to go. Ashley thought that apology was going to be the end of it. A quick "I'm sorry," a few tears, maybe a dramatic walk upstairs. And by morning everything would be brushed under the rug like crumbs after dinner. She forgot who raised Daniel. She forgot who taught him that respect isn't optional, especially inside your own home. After her forced little apology, she tried to storm past him toward the hallway. "I'm not doing this," she muttered. "This is insane." Daniel didn't raise his voice. He simply stepped in front of her. "We're not done." And that tone, that calm, grounded, unmistakably serious tone, stopped her in her tracks. I stayed seated. I wasn't going to interfere. This wasn't my battle to lead anymore. It was my son's. "You humiliated my mother," Daniel said evenly. "In her own kitchen. In front of your friends." Ashley crossed her arms defensively. "It was a joke. You're acting like I committed a crime." He looked at her for a long moment. "You've been telling people she's declining." Her eyes flickered. "You told Mrs. Harper she forgets conversations." Silence. "You told Brittany she shouldn't drive alone." More silence. "And now I'm finding out you've been moving her belongings and then suggesting she misplaced them." Her breathing grew heavier. "I was trying to show you she needs help." "By manufacturing evidence?" he asked sharply. That word landed like a brick. Manufacturing. She didn't deny it. Instead, she pivoted. Like people do when the truth corners them. "You don't understand what it's like living here," she snapped. "I feel like I have zero control in this house. Everything revolves around her." Everything revolves around her. The irony almost made me laugh. This is my house. Paid for. Decorated. Maintained. Loved for over 40 years. And she felt out of control. Daniel's face changed then, not angry. Disappointed. "You feel out of control," he repeated slowly. "So you try to make my mother look unstable?" Ashley's eyes filled with tears, but not the kind that come from regret. These were defensive tears. The kind that come when someone's narrative collapses. "I gave up my apartment to move here," she cried. "I gave up privacy. I gave up space. And all anyone talks about is her comfort." There it was. The real issue. This was never about my memory. It was about ownership. About power. About feeling secondary in a home that wasn't hers. Daniel ran his hand through his hair and paced once across the room. Then he stopped. "Pack a bag." Ashley blinked. "What?" "Pack a bag," he repeated calmly. "You're staying at your sister's for a few days." Her mouth dropped open. "You're kicking me out?" I'm asking you to step away until we figure out what kind of person you want to be in this family." That hit harder than shouting ever could. She looked at me then, as if expecting me to defend her. I simply met her eyes. Steady. Unapologetic. She scoffed. "This is ridiculous. She's manipulating you." Daniel turned so fast I thought the air shifted. "Stop," he warned. "Do not turn this into something it's not." "I saw it," he continued. "I saw your face when you threw that water. That wasn't an accident." Silence filled the room like smoke. Ashley's lips trembled. "You're choosing her over your wife," she whispered. Daniel's voice softened, but only slightly. "I'm choosing decency." Ah, decency. Not loyalty. Not sides. Character. She stood there for a full 10 seconds, staring at him like she didn't recognize the man in front of her. Maybe she didn't, because the version of Daniel she relied on, the distracted one, the busy one, the one too tired to notice, was gone. "I can't believe this," she said under her breath. "I can," I answered quietly. Her eyes snapped to me, and for the first time since she walked into my life, she looked unsure. Not superior. Not dismissive. Unsure. Daniel gestured toward the hallway. "Pack." She didn't move right away, but when she finally turned and walked down that hallway, her steps were heavy. The bedroom door closed. A suitcase zipped. Drawers opened and shut. The house felt different. Cleaner. Not because she was leaving, but because the truth was finally in the open. Daniel sat down across from me and exhaled deeply. "I'm sorry," he said. Those 2 words meant more than she could ever understand. "You have nothing to apologize for," I replied. He rubbed his temples. "How long has this been happening?" I considered the question. "Long enough," I said. His jaw tightened again. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Ah. Because mothers don't want to be the reason their sons' marriages fracture. Because we swallow discomfort to keep peace. Because we convince ourselves we can endure it." "I thought it would pass," I admitted. "I was wrong." He nodded slowly. Upstairs, I heard the suitcase wheels roll down the hallway. Ashley appeared again. Mascara slightly smudged, dignity cracking at the edges. She stopped near the door. "Is this what you wanted?" she asked me bitterly. I stood up. Slowly. Deliberately. "No," I said. "I wanted respect." She opened her mouth, then closed it. Because she had no argument against that. Daniel walked her to the door. When it closed behind her, the silence felt heavy but honest. And then my son did something that nearly broke me. He walked back inside and knelt in front of me. "Mom," he said softly, "I promise you, this will never happen again." My throat tightened. But I didn't cry, because this wasn't about tears. This was about restoration. However, as the headlights of Ashley's car disappeared down the street, a new thought settled in my chest. She may be out of the house tonight, but she is not finished. And tomorrow, she's going to try something desperate. The morning after Ashley left, the house felt quiet in a way I hadn't experienced in years. Not empty, not lonely, just honest. Sunlight poured through the kitchen windows and stretched across the floor like nothing had ever happened there. I stood at the counter making coffee, real coffee, not the watered-down almond milk nonsense Ashley preferred, and I breathed. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't bracing myself. Daniel had taken the day off work. That alone told me how deeply this had shaken him. He sat at the dining table scrolling through his phone, jaw tight, shoulders heavy. He hadn't slept much. "Mom," he said carefully, "if there's anything else I should know." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. "There is," I said calmly. "But it's better you see it yourself." His eyes lifted to mine. I walked to the hallway closet and brought back a small folder. Inside were printed screenshots. Dates. Short notes I had written over the past 2 months. Daniel frowned. "What is this?" "Patterns," I said. I showed him one page at a time. The day Ashley told the neighbor I shouldn't drive anymore. The time my bank statement went missing for 3 days. The afternoon she joked about assisted living in front of church friends. The week she rearranged my medication bottles, and then told Daniel I was mixing them up. Each page wasn't dramatic by itself, but together, it painted a picture. Daniel's face slowly hardened. She was building a case, he said quietly. Yes, I replied. And yesterday was escalation. Ah. Now he saw it. This wasn't random disrespect. It was strategy. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed. Ashley. He stared at the screen for a full 5 seconds before answering. What? No greeting. I watched his face carefully as she spoke. At first confusion. Then disbelief. Then anger. You did what? He asked sharply. My stomach didn't drop. It steadied. Because I already knew. Ashley wasn't going to sit quietly at her sister's house feeling remorse. She was going to flip the narrative. Daniel ended the call slowly. She called my aunt, he said flatly. And my cousin. And apparently Brittany's already told half her friend group that you set her up. Ah. There it was. She's saying you're unstable, he continued. That you've been paranoid. That you installed cameras because you're declining. She said you edited the footage. I actually smiled. Not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. When a person loses control, I said calmly, they reach for reputation. Daniel stood up and began pacing. She told my aunt you've been imagining hostility, and that I overreacted because I'm stressed from work. Aha. Classic. Minimize. Redirect. Gaslight. She even implied you need cognitive testing, he added, disgust creeping into his voice. I nodded slowly. That was always the long game. He stopped pacing. What long game? I held his gaze. If she convinces enough people I'm declining, then any objection I make becomes proof. The room went very still. Daniel's breathing shifted. She was laying groundwork, he whispered. Yes. And yesterday, he asked. She thought public humiliation would reinforce it, I answered. If I reacted emotionally, she'd label it confusion. If I said nothing, she'd label it detachment. Daniel pressed his hands against the table. She tried to discredit you. Yes. And now she's trying to discredit the evidence. Yes. Silence settled between us. Not heavy, but focused. He picked up my laptop and reopened the footage. This time he checked the metadata. Timestamps. Cloud backups. Automatic upload history. Everything intact. You didn't edit anything, he said. No. Iraplia. I don't need to. His phone buzzed again. Another relative. Another concerned message. Ashley was moving fast. That told me something important. She was scared. Mom, Daniel said slowly. She's going to push this further. I know. She might try to involve a doctor. Or suggest an evaluation. Or claim emotional distress. I know. He looked at me carefully. Aren't you worried? Ah. That question. I folded my hands on the table. I raised you alone after your father died, I said softly. I negotiated insurance companies. I managed contractors. I survived hospital bills and lawyers. Do you really think I'm afraid of gossip? His mouth twitched despite everything. She underestimated you, he said. Yes. And I did too, he added quietly. That part hurt. But it was honest. Before I could answer, there was a knock at the door. Not soft. Not hesitant. Firm. Daniel froze. I didn't. I already knew who it was. She doesn't quit easily, I murmured. He walked to the door and opened it. Ashley stood there. But she wasn't alone. Beside her stood her sister, arms crossed, and a middle-aged woman I didn't recognize. Clipboard in hand. Professional smile. I'm sorry to drop by unannounced, the woman said politely. I'm here for a wellness check. Ah. So this is how she wanted to play it. Ashley's eyes met mine. Not apologetic. Not ashamed. Strategic. She thought if she could put doubt on my mental stability officially, everything else would collapse. The cameras. The consequences. The narrative. She thought she could turn the system against me. But what she didn't know is that I had already anticipated this move. And in the drawer beside my chair was something she never saw coming. When I saw the clipboard in that woman's hand, I understood immediately what Ashley was trying to do. This wasn't emotion. This wasn't panic. This was escalation. The woman standing on my porch wore a neutral beige blazer, and the kind of polite, Measured smile professionals use when they're trained not to assume anything. She introduced herself as a licensed social worker responding to a family concern. Family concern. Ashley stood slightly behind her, arms folded, chin lifted just enough to look worried but not aggressive. Her sister hovered beside her like backup muscle, scanning my house as if they were already evaluating it. Daniel stepped fully into the doorway. A wellness check? On what grounds? The social worker answered gently. We received a call stating there may be cognitive decline and potential emotional instability in the home. Emotional instability. Ah. Ashley's eyes flickered toward me, searching for a reaction. She expected outrage, tears, confusion. I gave her none. Instead, I opened the door wider. Please, I said calmly. Come in. Daniel turned to me, surprised. I nodded once. Let them. Because the only thing stronger than accusation is composure. The social worker stepped inside and glanced around the living room. It was clean, organized, warm. The lamps were dusted. The books were arranged. The air smelled faintly of cinnamon from the morning coffee. There was no chaos here. There was no confusion. Only a 78-year-old woman standing upright in her own home. I'd like to ask you a few questions, Mrs. Thompson, she said kindly. Of course, I replied. Ashley shifted her weight. She didn't expect cooperation. She expected resistance. The social worker asked basic orientation questions. The date. The president. My address. The year I was born. I answered clearly. Precisely. She asked about medications. I listed them, dosage and timing. She asked about finances. I explained my accounts, my property taxes, my utility schedule. Ashley's sister slowly stopped smirking. The social worker's pen slowed. Then she asked, has there been tension in the household? Ah. That was the doorway Ashley wanted. Yes, I answered calmly. There has. Ashley straightened. The social worker looked up. Can you describe it? I folded my hands in my lap and spoke evenly. My daughter-in-law threw a glass of ice water in my face yesterday in front of guests. The room went still. The social worker blinked once. I'm sorry. Daniel stepped forward. We have video. Ashley's composure cracked slightly. It was an accident. I raised a hand gently. Please, let me finish. The social worker nodded. For several months, I continued, there have been repeated attempts to portray me as cognitively unstable. Comments to neighbors. Rearranging of personal belongings. Suggesting I am forgetful. Encouraging my son to question my independence. Ashley's sister shifted uncomfortably. The social worker's expression changed from neutral to attentive. And yesterday, I added, when I installed cameras for my own safety, an incident occurred that appears deliberate. Daniel opened the laptop on the coffee table. The footage played. No dramatic edits. No music. Just facts. The flick of the wrist. The splash. The laugh. She doesn't even feel stuff like that anymore. When the video ended, no one spoke. The social worker slowly closed her notebook. She turned toward Ashley. Ma'am, did you place the call? Ashley's lips parted. I was worried. She's been paranoid lately. Installing cameras. Recording us. For safety, Daniel interjected sharply, which I agreed to. The social worker's gaze shifted between them. Mrs. Thompson, she said carefully, do you feel safe in this home? I held her eyes. Yes. I do. And do you feel you are being pressured to relinquish independence? Yes. Ashley inhaled sharply. That's not fair. But it was no longer about fairness. It was about credibility. The social worker stood up slowly. Based on my assessment, I do not see signs of cognitive impairment at this time. Ashley's face drained of color. I would, however, the woman continued, recommend family counseling to address boundary concerns. Boundary concerns. A professional way of saying someone crossed a line. Ashley's sister avoided eye contact now. The social worker handed me her card. If you ever feel unsafe, call directly. I accepted it with steady hands. She then turned to Ashley. False or exaggerated wellness reports can complicate genuine cases, she said evenly. I encourage thoughtful consideration before initiating future assessments. That was as close to a warning as she could legally give. Ashley's shoulders tightened. When the social worker and her sister left, Ashley remained standing in the doorway. Daniel closed it behind them. The air felt electric. You tried to have me evaluated, I said quietly. I was protecting you, she snapped weakly. No, Daniel replied. You were trying to build a record. Her eyes filled with frustrated tears. You're both twisting everything. I stood up slowly. No, I said. You are losing control. That hit. Because it was true. Her attempt to publicly question my sanity had just backfired in front of a licensed professional. And now there was documentation. Documentation that I was competent. Documentation that she initiated concern. Documentation that the concern was unfounded. Ashley's breathing grew uneven. You think this is over? She whispered. Ah. There it was. The shift from defense to threat. Daniel's voice dropped low. Careful. She grabbed her purse with shaking hands. This house is toxic, she said, backing toward the door. No. Ian answered calmly. It's clear. She left without another word. The door shut. Daniel leaned against it, exhaling slowly. She's not done, he said. No. Iraplia. Because when someone's manipulation fails publicly, they don't retreat quietly. They escalate privately. And as I walked back to the living room and closed my laptop, one realization settled deeply in my chest. Ashley just made this bigger. And now, I'm going to finish it properly. If there's one thing I've learned in 78 years of living in America, it's this. When manipulation fails emotionally, it moves financially. Ashley didn't show up the next day. She didn't call. She didn't send another dramatic message through relatives. No. She went quiet. And quiet people are the ones you watch carefully. 3 mornings later, I was sitting at the kitchen table balancing my monthly accounts, something I've done without assistance for decades, when I noticed something unusual. A notification from my bank. Password reset confirmation. I hadn't reset anything. My coffee cup paused halfway to my lips. Ah, there it is. I calmly picked up my phone and called the bank directly using the number on the back of my card, not the email link. I may be older, but I'm not foolish. After verifying my identity, the representative confirmed that someone had attempted to reset my online banking password at 2:13 a.m. Was it successful? I asked. No, ma'am, she replied. The attempt failed due to incorrect security answers. I almost smiled. Ashley never knew my mother's maiden name. She never knew the street I grew up on in Ohio, because she never cared to ask. I thanked the representative and hung up. Then I sat there quietly and thought. Ashley didn't just wake up at 2:13 a.m. guessing passwords for fun. That meant one thing. She was looking for leverage. When Daniel came downstairs, I told him calmly. He didn't even look surprised. She asked me last month how your accounts were structured, he said slowly. I thought she was just making conversation. Did you tell her anything? No. I said that wasn't my business. Good boy. But Ashley had been gathering information, trying to understand what she could access, what she could influence, what she could imply. Because if she couldn't win by painting me unstable, maybe she could paint me irresponsible, financially incompetent. Another angle to question independence. Daniel sat across from me, anger building under his skin. She's digging, he said. Yes, I replied. And that means she's scared. Exactly. Fear makes people reckless. And reckless people make mistakes. That afternoon, Daniel did something I didn't ask him to do, but I respected deeply. He drove to her sister's house. He didn't warn her he was coming. He didn't argue over the phone. He showed up. When he returned 2 hours later, his face told me everything before he even spoke. She admitted it, he said. I stayed quiet. She said she was just checking to make sure you weren't being scammed. That she was protecting family assets. Family assets. Interesting phrase for someone who doesn't own this house. She tried to say she was worried you'd get taken advantage of, he continued. I asked her who exactly she thought would take advantage of you. He didn't need to finish the sentence. The implication was clear. Daniel sat down heavily in the chair. She thinks if she can prove you're financially vulnerable, I'll reconsider putting her back in the house. There it was. This wasn't about concern. It wasn't about my health. It wasn't about safety. It was about reentry. She thought if she destabilized me enough, Daniel would feel obligated to restore order. And restoring order would mean restoring her. She's miscalculating, I said calmly. Daniel looked at me carefully. Mom, is there anything financially she could twist? I folded my hands on the table. No. Because here's something Ashley never understood. I built this life deliberately. The house is in a trust. The accounts are diversified. The property deed is structured. And Daniel? He isn't on anything unless I choose. Not because I don't love him, but because independence isn't something you gamble. Ashley assumed age meant weakness. She assumed generational difference meant ignorance. She assumed I didn't understand digital banking, security protocols, or estate planning. She was wrong. Daniel rubbed his jaw slowly. I told her something else. What did you tell her? I asked. He looked up at me. I told her if she attempts anything like that again, anything involving your finances, I will consider it intentional fraud. The word hung heavy in the air. Fraud. Ashley had been playing emotional chess. She forgot that financial moves are traceable, trackable, provable. And now she knew Daniel wasn't going to shield her. He was going to confront her. She cried, he added quietly. Said I'm humiliating her. Ah, humiliation. Interesting how that word only hurts when you're on the receiving end. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the neighborhood looked the same as it always had. Calm. Ordinary. But inside this family, the power structure had shifted permanently. She won't stop easily, Daniel said behind me. No, I agreed. Then what do we do? I turned slowly. We don't react emotionally anymore, I said. We respond legally. His eyes sharpened, because now he understood. This was no longer about apologies or temporary separations. Ashley had shown her hand. She was willing to manipulate perception. She was willing to involve authorities. She was willing to probe finances. And that meant something bigger. She wasn't just fighting for pride. She was fighting for position. And I had one more piece she didn't know about. A document. Signed last year. Updated recently. One that makes her entire strategy irrelevant. Daniel doesn't know about it yet. Ashley definitely doesn't. But when I reveal it, everything changes. Ashley thought she was playing chess. What she didn't realize is that I've been playing long before she ever sat at the board. The morning after Daniel confronted her about the bank incident, I made a phone call I should have made months ago, not out of fear, but out of finality. I called my attorney. Now let me be very clear about something. This isn't some dramatic TV lawyer situation. This is real life. And in real life, smart women, especially older women in America, prepare quietly. My attorney, Mr. Caldwell, has handled my estate planning for the past 3 years. He's thorough, calm, and not easily rattled. When I explained what had been happening, the attempts to question my mental stability, the wellness check, the bank password reset, he didn't gasp. He simply said, I'm glad you documented everything. Ah, documentation. It saves you when emotion fails. That afternoon, Daniel and I drove to Mr. Caldwell's office together. I wanted him there, not because I needed help understanding anything, but because he needed clarity. We sat across from the large mahogany desk, sunlight cutting through tall windows behind us. Mrs. Thompson updated her trust last year. Mr. Caldwell began calmly. Daniel looked at me, surprised. Updated. Yes, I said. Because here's something Ashley never knew. After she moved into this house, I paid attention. Not to her words, to her patterns. Mr. Caldwell opened a folder and slid a document across the desk. This is a revocable living trust, he explained. The property, accounts, and major assets are secured within it. Daniel scanned the paperwork. I'm not listed as primary successor? He asked carefully. You are, I said gently. But not unconditionally. He looked at me again, confused. Mr. Caldwell continued. The trust includes a protection clause. In the event that Mrs. Thompson is pressured, declared incompetent without medical basis, or subject to undue influence from a third party, assets are frozen and transferred to a managed fiduciary until an independent review is conducted. Daniel blinked. In simple terms, he asked. I answered him myself. If anyone tries to legally question my capacity without cause, they gain nothing. The room went still. Daniel leaned back slowly. And Ashley doesn't know this, he said. No. Iraplia. She doesn't. Because I didn't need to announce it. Preparation doesn't require performance. Mr. Caldwell folded his hands. Additionally, Mrs. Thompson appointed medical and financial power of attorney to an independent third party, not a family member. Daniel's eyes widened slightly. Who? My physician, I said calmly. And a co-trustee. Not him. Not Ashley. No one emotionally involved. Neutral oversight. Protection. Daniel exhaled deeply. She thought. He started then stopped. Yes, I finished for him. She thought if she painted me unstable, control would shift. But Ashley didn't understand estate law. She didn't understand how many older Americans quietly protect themselves from exactly this kind of strategy. She assumed vulnerability. She assumed inheritance. She assumed proximity meant access. She assumed wrong. On the drive home, Daniel was quiet, processing. Finally, he said, Mom, did you think I'd ever let something happen to you? That question wasn't defensive. It was wounded. I turned toward him gently. No, I said honestly. But love can be manipulated. Documentation cannot. He nodded slowly. And then something shifted in his expression. Not confusion. Not anger. Resolve. That evening, Ashley called again. Daniel put her on speaker. Her voice was softer than before. Measured. I think we need to talk, she said carefully. We are talking, Daniel replied. I've been thinking, she continued. Maybe things got out of hand. Maybe we both reacted. Both. Shared blame is the favorite tool of someone cornered. Daniel didn't engage emotionally. There's something you should know, he said evenly. Silence on the other end. Mom's estate is fully secured. Any attempt to challenge her competency triggers legal review and asset freeze. The silence stretched longer this time. Ashley's breathing shifted. I never wanted her money, she said quickly. Daniel didn't argue. He didn't accuse. He simply said, Good. Then this won't concern you. That landed. Because now she understood something critical. There was no path to leverage. No financial advantage. No estrategic reward. Her entire narrative, unstable mother-in-law, concerned wife, protective daughter-in-law, collapsed under one legal clause. Her voice tightened. So what now, she asked. Now. The word held everything. Daniel looked at me before answering. And I nodded once. He understood. Now, he said calmly, you take accountability. Or you step away permanently. No jailing. No threats. Just clarity. Ashley didn't respond immediately. Because for the first time, there was no angle left. No authority to involve. No assets to manipulate. No sympathy narrative to spin. Just truth. And consequences. When the call ended, Daniel looked at me quietly. She's realizing she never had power here, he said. I shook my head gently. No, I corrected him. She's realizing she never had control. Power and control aren't the same thing. And tomorrow, she's coming back to this house. Not with a social worker. Not with accusations. But with something she hasn't shown once since this began. Humility. The question is, will it be real? The knock on the door the next afternoon wasn't sharp. It wasn't entitled. It wasn't the kind of knock that assumes it belongs there. It was hesitant. Measured. Almost small. I was sitting in my usual chair by the window when I heard it. Daniel was in the kitchen, pretending to read emails but really just waiting. We both knew she would come back. Pride can only carry a person so far when every strategy collapses. Daniel walked to the door. When he opened it, Ashley stood there alone. No sister. No clipboard. No performance. She wasn't dressed like she was meeting friends. No perfectly styled hair. No palish lipstick smile. Her face looked tired, not dramatically so, just worn. Like someone who hadn't slept well for days. Can I come in? She asked quietly. Ah. That was new. Daniel stepped aside but didn't speak. She walked into the living room slowly, her eyes landing on me almost immediately. For a moment, neither of us said anything. The air wasn't hostile. It was honest. Ashley clasped her hands together in front of her. A nervous habit I'd never seen before. I spoke to a lawyer, she began. Daniel's posture stiffened slightly, but she lifted her hand quickly. Not about fighting anything, she added. I needed to understand what I'd done. I stayed silent. She took a breath. I didn't realize how serious it looked. The bank thing. The wellness check. I thought I was protecting my place in this family. There it was again. Place. Not love. Not respect. Position. You were protecting control. I said gently. She swallowed. Yes. The admission wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it was real. She walked a little closer, though she didn't sit down. When I moved into this house, she continued, I felt like I was living in someone else's story. Your pictures. Your furniture. Your traditions. Daniel's loyalty to you. I started feeling invisible. Daniel looked at her carefully, but didn't interrupt. And instead of handling that like an adult, she said, voice unsteady, I tried to shift the balance. You tried to reduce me, I replied calmly. She nodded. Yes. The word came out almost like it hurt. Silence settled over us again, but this time it wasn't sharp. It was reflective. I was wrong, Ashley said finally, looking directly at me. Throwing that water wasn't a joke. It was disrespect. Calling for a wellness check was manipulative. Trying to access your bank account was desperate. Desperate. That one mattered. Daniel crossed his arms, but not defensively, protectively. Ashley's eyes moved back to him. I let insecurity turn into cruelty, she said. And I'm ashamed of that. I studied her face carefully. I've lived long enough to know the difference between a rehearsed apology and a cracked ego. This wasn't polished. It wasn't strategic. It was uncomfortable. Good. Growth is uncomfortable. You tried to take my dignity, I said softly. That isn't small. I know, she whispered. And you involved my son in something that forced him to choose between truth and loyalty. Her eyes filled with tears, not defensive tears this time. These didn't fight. They fell. I never wanted to lose my marriage, she said. Ah, there it was. The real fear. Daniel finally spoke. You almost did, he said evenly. She nodded slowly. I see that now. Then something happened I didn't expect. Ashley stepped forward and, without theatrics, lowered herself to her knees in front of me. Not dramatically. Not loudly. Just deliberately. Daniel inhaled sharply, but I held his arm gently to keep him still. Ashley looked up at me. I humiliated you, she said clearly. In your own home. In front of guests. I questioned your sanity. I tried to make you look weak. I am sorry. Not if you felt hurt. Not if it came across wrong. Direct ownership. I felt something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness yet, but acknowledgement. You will stand, I said calmly. She looked confused for a second. I don't need you beneath me, I continued. I need you accountable. She slowly rose to her feet again. Daniel's voice was steady when he spoke next. If you stay in this house, he said, there will be boundaries. She nodded immediately. No discussions about Mom's health unless she initiates them. No involvement in her finances. No narrative building. And full transparency moving forward. Yes, she said. And he added, family counseling. Mandatory. She hesitated for half a second. Then nodded again. Yes. I studied her one last time. Respect is not something you perform when caught, I said. It is something you practice when no one is watching. Her eyes dropped. I understand. Do I believe she transformed overnight? No. People don't change in a single week. But fear can wake someone up. And losing control can reveal character. I leaned back in my chair and folded my hands. You may stay, I said calmly. But you will earn your place here. Her shoulders sagged, not in defeat but in relief. Daniel exhaled slowly for the first time since she walked in. The power in this house didn't shift that day. It clarified. But here's what Ashley still doesn't know. Forgiveness is a door. Trust is a staircase. And she's only standing at the bottom step. She faces the one thing she can't charm, manipulate, or rush. Time. People think forgiveness fixes everything. It doesn't. Forgiveness opens the door. But trust? Trust stands in the hallway with crossed arms and says, "Prove it." The morning after Ashley returned, the house felt different again. Not tense, not peaceful either. It felt observant. Like the walls themselves were watching to see who she would be now. I woke up at 6:15 a.m., as I always do. Old habits don't retire. I made my coffee and sat by the window, waiting for the sun to climb over the trees. Usually, Ashley slept until Daniel left for work. That morning, I heard movement in the kitchen at 6:40. Effort. She walked in quietly, hair tied back, no makeup, oversized sweater. Not performing, just present. "Good morning," she said gently. "Good morning," I replied. She hesitated. "I made oatmeal. I wasn't sure how you like it, so I left everything separate." Separate. Considerate. Small detail. But details reveal intention. "Thank you," I said calmly. Daniel came downstairs 10 minutes later, clearly surprised to see us both sitting at the table without tension radiating off the walls. Ashley didn't overtalk. She didn't oversmile. She didn't try to fill silence with nervous chatter. She simply existed. That's harder than people think. The first week was careful. She didn't touch my paperwork. Didn't ask about my accounts. Didn't make comments about memory or safety. When neighbors stopped by, she didn't speak for me. She let me answer. That mattered. But trust isn't built in public moments. It's tested in private ones. 3 days later, Brittany, one of the friends who had laughed the day of the water incident, came over unexpectedly. I was in the living room when she arrived. Ashley opened the door. "Oh hey," Brittany said lightly, stepping inside. "Is everything okay? We haven't talked since, you know." Since the incident. Ashley glanced toward me. Here it is. The fork in the road. She could minimize it. She could reframe it. She could joke it away. Instead, she said clearly, "I treated her badly. I'm fixing it." Silence. Brittany blinked. "Oh, no drama. No excuses. Just ownership." I watched quietly from my chair. Brittany shifted awkwardly. "Well, we thought it was weird, honestly." Ashley nodded. "It was worse than weird. It was disrespectful." That was the moment I felt something real. Not redemption. Not warmth. But responsibility. Later that afternoon, Ashley knocked on my bedroom door. Another small change. She used to walk in without thinking. "Can I come in?" she asked. "Yes." She stepped inside and closed the door gently behind her. "I scheduled the counseling appointment," she said. "For all three of us." I studied her face carefully. Not defensive. Not dramatic. Focused. "I also called my aunt," she continued. "And your cousin." I corrected what I said. "That one surprised me." "You told them what?" I asked. "That I exaggerated. That you're fully competent. That I was wrong." Reputation restored. Publicly. That's not easy. "I don't expect you to trust me," she added quietly. "But I am not going to fight you anymore." Not fight. Interesting word choice. I looked at her for a long moment before responding. "Respect isn't silence," I said. "It's consistency." She nodded. "I know." Weeks passed. No incidents. No passive comments. No subtle power plays. When mail arrived addressed to me, she placed it neatly on the entry table without touching it. When church members asked how I was doing, she smiled and said, "You should ask her." When Daniel spoke about future plans, she didn't interrupt or reposition herself in the conversation. But here's the thing about time. It reveals truth. One evening, about a month later, I accidentally left my purse on the kitchen counter. Open. Cash inside. Debit card visible. Ashley walked in alone. She paused when she saw it. I was standing in the hallway watching quietly. Not suspicious. Observing. She walked toward it. My heart didn't race. It steadied. She picked up the purse, closed it gently, and carried it to my bedroom door. She knocked. You left this out, she said softly. No hesitaste. No scanning. No calculaste. Just return. That was the first day I felt the staircase move one step higher. Trust doesn't return in speeches. It returns in moments no one applauds. Later that night, Daniel sat beside me on the couch. She's trying, he said. Yes, I replied. Do you think it's real? That question again. I leaned back slowly. Real change isn't loud, I said. It's repetitive. And Ashley had been repetitive. Consistently respectful. Consistently measured. Consistently accountable. But trust is fragile. And there's one final test she hasn't faced yet. Because next week, we sit down in that counseling room. And the therapist is going to ask one question that will either solidify this family or expose cracks she hasn't fully healed. And when that question comes, there will be no performance. Only truth. The counseling office didn't look dramatic. No dark lighting. No leather couches from some TV show. Just soft beige walls, 3 chairs arranged in a triangle, and a box of tissues sitting quietly on a small wooden table. Neutral territory, which meant no one had home field advantage. Ashley sat to my left. Daniel to my right. The therapist, Dr. Myers, sat across from us with a legal pad resting gently on her knee. She wasn't there to accuse. She was there to observe. And observers see more than performers realize. We spent the first 20 minutes reviewing the incident. As professionals like to label humiliation. Ashley didn't minimize it. She didn't dramatize it either. She described it plainly. I felt small, she admitted. And I made her smaller so I could feel bigger. That sentence mattered. Because it wasn't defensive. It was aware. Dr. Myers nodded slowly. And when you attempted the wellness check? Ashley inhaled carefully. I was trying to control the narrative. Honesty in therapy is different than honesty at home. It doesn't echo. It settles. Daniel sat quietly, absorbing everything. Then Dr. Myers turned to me. Mrs. Thompson, she said gently. What did that moment, the water, the accusations, the bank attempt, represent to you emotionally? Emotionally. That word. I took a slow breath before answering. It represented erasure, I said calmly. Not just disrespect. Erasure. Ashley's head lifted slightly. I built a life in that house, I continued. I raised my son there. I buried my husband from there. Every photograph on those walls is history. And she tried to make me invisible inside it. The room went still. Daniel swallowed. Dr. Myers leaned forward slightly. Ashley, did you understand that impact? Ashley's voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. No. Do you now? A pause. Yes. Then Dr. Myers asked the question. The one that determines whether reconciliation is possible or just temporary. If Mrs. Thompson lives another 20 years, she said calmly, what does her role in this family look like to you? 20 years. Not 5. Not until 20. Ashley didn't answer quickly. Good. Quick answers are usually strategic. She looked at me, not around me. At me. She stays exactly where she is, Ashley said slowly. Respected. Independent. Consulted, not managed. The word managed lingered. Dr. Myers nodded. And if she remains financially autonomous? Ashley didn't hesitate this time. Then I support that. No flinch. No side glance. Support. Then the therapist turned to Daniel. And you, she asked. Daniel's answer was immediate. My mother is not a phase in my life. She's foundational. Foundational. That word filled the room in a way nothing else had. Dr. Myers closed her notebook gently. Then this isn't a competition, she said calmly. It's a structure. And structures fail when people fight for the same beam. Silence settled again, but not tense. Clear. When the session ended, we walked out together. No one rushed ahead. No one lagged behind. Outside in the parking lot, Ashley stopped before reaching the car. She turned to me. I can't undo what I did, she said quietly. But I won't repeat it. I studied her face one last time. The insecurity that once sharpened her features had softened. Not disappeared, but understood. I don't need perfection, I said. I need consistency. She nodded. I can do consistency. Daniel unlocked the car, but before getting in, he did something that closed this chapter properly. He looked at Ashley and said, if it ever happens again, even subtly, we're done. Not angry. Not dramatic. Clear. Ashley nodded once. It won't. And here's the truth I've learned in all my years. Revenge feels powerful for a moment. Dignity feels powerful forever. Yes, I recorded her. Yes, I exposed her. Yes, I protected myself legally. But the real victory wasn't making her kneel. It was making her understand. Power isn't about control. It's about boundaries. And in this house, those boundaries are now carved in stone. Months have passed since that session. No more comments. No more narrative games. No more financial curiosity. Just respect. Steady. Intentional. Earned. Ashley doesn't try to dominate the room anymore. She contributes to it. And sometimes when I catch her watching me carefully, not suspiciously but thoughtfully, I see something that wasn't there before. Awareness. She learned the hard way that old does not mean weak, that quiet does not mean powerless, and that a grandmother is not someone you erase. She is someone you honor. And if you ever forget that, well, I still have the cameras. If this story touches your heart, please like and subscribe for more.